Welcome to week 7 of financial resource development. It's so hard to believe that the class is almost done. But we have some exciting stuff to talk about this week. First, we have 2 things that we're going to go over this week. First is a case study. Second is prospect screening. Let's talk about the prospect screening first. The prospect screening articles are what you're going to base your discussion board off of. And you'll notice that there's 2 assigned articles. The first one is a Smart Money article titled, Is Your Favorite Charity Spying on You? You'll notice that underneath that link, there's a bullet point that says a Smart Money article, and then there's 2 sub-bullets. The first one is to the subscription to the actual article. The second bullet there is the free text to the article. So make sure you're clicking on the second bullet unless you're on the Regis campus. And if you're on the campus, then you can access the original. So this article basically talks about some prospect screening systems that we use and asks whether or not it's ethical. Now, one of the things that I want you to take into mind is what prospect screening is. First off, this article that we're looking at is a couple years old. However, as information is becoming more abundant, we actually have more opportunities for prospect screening. And so the conversation is more relevant today than ever. Also, the second article is a retort to the Is Your Favorite Charity Spying on You? And it's an article that was created by a development director that talks about how these practices are used in order to make charities more effective. And they basically argue that it's irresponsible for charities not to use them because otherwise they're wasting donors' monies. So I want you to take and read these articles. Another thing that I want you to ask yourself as you read them is, what is your knee-jerk reaction? One of the things that I find is a lot of times students will have the knee-jerk reaction and say, oh, well, prospect screening is awful. It's bad. It's terrible. But then how many of those same students, if they were set up to go on a date or a dinner date with a donor, how many of them would take time to look at that donor's Facebook page in order to find out some different topics that they could talk about on their meeting? Is that different? Is that not using technology in order to solicitate a better chance at raising donations? So one of the things that I want to ask you is, if you think some of this is wrong and others okay, then where do you draw that line? Because this is actually something that's very important. And you can say, oh, well, Facebook is public for everyone to see. Well, so is all the information that's provided in prospect screening software. It's simply public information. And if you Googled an individual enough, you would be able to find that same information. So it's important to recognize that some of these screening services that you can type in someone's name and find out information, they're not telling you how much money's in that person's checking account because that's private information, but they are telling you if that person's a major stockholder in a company, what you expect that person's salary to be based on their occupation and different salaries around the area. So it's all public information and it's all kind of best guess, but this can be really helpful. So again, as you're taking time, I want you to consider how you yourself use it, and also let's look at an example of how this can be used. So imagine that you're standing in line to go to a zoo. When you get up to the ticket taker, they say, would you be interested in joining a contest for a free drawing to see if you can go on a backstage tour? And you say yes. And they say, okay, well, let me have your driver's license, and we'll enter you in that, and we're going to announce the winner at 11 o'clock. So they then take everyone's driver's license who's interested. They scan them in. And then imagine a scenario where they've scanned in those driver's license, and in this back room somewhere, they're entering each one of those people through the prospect screening software. And maybe they're going to take 3 or 4 families, let's say 4 families, on this tour. Maybe they take 3 families who the software says has a very high propensity to give, means that they're likely and they can give a lot of money, and then they do a free drawing for that 4th family. Now, in your mind, if you get called on this tour, you're going to think that you were just a random person, but they actually handpicked based on the screening software 3 of the people and then drew for 1 of the people. But however, imagine though that as a result of this, you get to take your kids on this tour where maybe they get to have an close encounter with a polar bear. Maybe they get to help feed the monkeys. And then at the end, they bring you into this little room and they talk to you about how important the zoo is, how much they need, and oh, would you be willing to adopt one of the animals that you got to feed? So notice how they've taken this and they've applied it on a day-to-day basis, and think of how effective a method like that could be. And then ask yourself, is that wrong? Are you okay with it? What are the ethical implications of it? And I just want you to take time to consider that, and we can discuss it on the discussion board.